Hello everyone, you have come to Tata Comic Preview channel. Let read together. Have fun. This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. Yu Shangrong was trying his best to get what he wanted without having to resort to force. After all, it was unlikely for him to be able to upend the Yuan'er sect with his three-leaf nascent divinity tribulation realm. You don't look like him, one of the disciples said. Is that so? Zing. The longevity sword was unsheathed. The scarlet sword danced in the air. Bam. The longevity sword collided with the barrier. A huge ripple spread across the barrier. The disciples were startled into jumping, shaken. A scarlet sword. At this moment, a man dressed in a robe came running from the distance. Impudent fools. How dare you behave rudely toward Mr. Second? Do you have a death wish? The disciples turned around and saw the man bowing and running at the same time. Elder Shen? When the other disciples saw him, they bowed. Elder Shen. Elder Shen waved his hand. He waded through the crowd and ran to the edge of the barrier. When he was at the spot closest to Yu Shangrong, he looked up carefully before his eyes widened. Then, he said reverently, "It's the evil sky pavilion's Mr. Second. Welcome. Welcome." Upon hearing these words, the disciples shuddered. All of them threw their swords aside and fell to their knees without a word. "Greetings, Mr. Second." Yu Shangrong was puzzled. He looked at the man. He had no recollection of him. Moreover, he preferred to act alone and challenge elites wherever he went. It was impossible for him to make friends. How could someone recognize him? Nevertheless, he decided to go with the flow. It was a good thing for someone else to recognize him. This saved him some trouble. He descended slowly. Elder Shen opened a path through the barrier and made an inviting gesture. Yu Shangrong glanced at him before stepping through the barrier. He asked, "How should I address you, my friend?" Elder Shen kept his back bent as he said, "I'm Shen Liangshou. I've met old Senior Ji once during the Battle of Liang Province." This man was none other than the person on top of the whitelist, Shen Liangshou. After the incident, he stopped dabbling in human trafficking. After recovering his cultivation base with sable magnolias, he came to the Yuan'er sect and was appointed as an elder. He was now wiser from his experience. Ji Tiandao was the person Shen Liangshou worshipped the most. Having made the mistake of looking down on Ji Tiandao before, he did everything in his power to learn about the characteristics of the evil sky pavilion's 9 disciples. As he expected, it came in handy now. This was especially true for Ji Tiandao. Shen Liangshou was confident that he would be able to recognize him immediately should they meet again. He would not make the same mistake twice. That's good. Yu Shangrong nodded. When the others heard this, they stepped backward with a shocked expression on their faces. It was as though they were facing a great enemy. Shen Liangshou swept his gaze past the disciples. He cleared his throat and reprimanded them, "I'll teach all of you a lesson later for disrespecting Mr. Second." The disciples remained kneeling. They dared not move. Shen Liangshou felt awkward as he said, "My apologies. These disciples don't know how to behave. I feel ashamed on their behalf." "It's all right. What brings you here, Mr. Second?" Shen Liangshou asked. In truth, he could already guess Yu Shangrong's purpose for coming here. However, the evil sky pavilion was known to act unconventionally. "I heard that the Yuan'er sect has lotus-severing survival pills," Yu Shangrong said. Shen Liangshou expected as much. He immediately flashed a smile and said, "Men." Yes, Elder Shen," one of the Yuan'er sect disciples said in a trembling voice. "Bring 10 survival pills over and give them to Mr. Second," Shen Liangshou said. Yes. The disciple was about to turn and leave when Yu Shangrong waved his hand and said, "It's best if you can give me 100. Shen Liangshou. Currently, the supply of survival pills could not meet the demand. 100 pills were not a small number. He winced as he said, "Mr. Second, why don't we have a cup of tea and talk about this?" "I decline. I'm in a hurry." Yu Shangrong's expression remained calm. "In that case, kindly wait here as I fetch the survival pills for you." Shen Liangshou did not dare to dally. He turned around and went to the pill refining room. Yu Shangrong looked up at Bayan, who was hovering nearby. He nodded. Bayan landed beside him. The disciples had never seen a mount like it before. They retreated further out of fright. Shortly after, Shang Liangshou hurried back with 100 survival pills. He presented them reverently with both hands to Yu Shangrong. "Mr. Second, 100 survival pills, as requested." "I heard that the Koryang sect has leaf-sprouting pills as well," Yu Shangrong said with a straight face. Shen Liangshou was already feeling the pinch from the previous request. When he heard Yu Shangrong mentioning the leaf-sprouting pills, he pulled a long face and said, "Mr. Second, the survival pill is all we have. The leaf-sprouting pills are more precious and are extremely difficult to refine. Only the Big Dipper Academy is capable of refining them." Yu Shangrong nodded when he heard this. He received the 100 survival pills and brought them to his nose before he took a whiff. A unique medicinal scent wafted into his nose. "Mr. Second, are you going to sever your lotus?" Shen Liangshou asked in a hushed voice after making sure the others were out of earshot. Shen Liangshou said furtively, "Mr. Second, take the pill before severing your lotus, and when you do so, you must be quick, decisive, and precise." Yu Shangrong glanced at Shen Liangshou and asked, "What else?" Shen Liangshou glanced at the disciples behind him again, and he pointed at the edge of the barrier. Yu Shangrong understood Shen Liangshou's meaning and followed Shen Liangshou. Shen Liangshou lowered his voice as though he was a thief and said, "If you have the leaf-sprouting pills, you may consume them during the earlier stages and improve your strength as soon as possible. The leaf-sprouting pills aren't much use in the later stages. The effects will also be diminished when the user's cultivation base has improved. Also, if the improvement is too quick, the foundation will be unstable." Yu Shangrong nodded. "That sounds logical. Mr. Second, when you return, can you put in a good word or two for me in front of old Senior Ji? I'll be eternally grateful." Shen Liangshou bowed. "That can be arranged." Yu Shangrong put the survival pills away. Then, he tapped the ground with the tips of his feet and flew toward Bayan. "Safe journey, Mr. Second." Yu Shangrong sat atop Bayan and flew down Koryang Mountain. Shen Liangshou turned around at once and ran toward Koryang Sect's meeting hall. He reached his destination soon enough. He opened the doors and entered the hall. "Sect Master Wu, he has left." From a corner, Wu Deong walked out with a slight tremble. He wiped the sweat from his face and stole a glance at the skies. After making sure that Yu Shangrong was not there, he finally spoke, "Thank the heavens that you showed up just in time. I was scared out of my wits." "Don't fret, Sect Master. Mr. Second wasn't hostile," Shen Liangshou replied. "In any case, the Koryang sect can't afford to cross the Sword Devil, let alone the Evil Sky Pavilion," Wu Deong said. Meanwhile, Lu Zhou opened his eyes after meditating on the heavenly writing scrolls for a night. He gauged his extraordinary power. He had 1/5 of his full capacity. As expected, if he proceeded at this pace, all he needed was 5 days to completely replenish his extraordinary power. Indeed, his meditating speed had increased. What would the 5th heavenly writing power be like? Lu Zhou muttered to himself. He stood up and looked at the old parchment drawing. Apart from Great Yan's lands, the other parts of the drawing were still a blur. There was nothing there. Lu Zhou decided to attempt the lucky draws to change the pace of things. He sat down. Lucky draw. Ding. Spent 50 merit points. Spent 54 luck points. Obtained appearance alteration card X5. Appearance alteration card. Enables you to change your appearance. Lasts for 5 days per use. Appearance alteration card? Lu Zhou was puzzled when he saw the new item card. Was the system on a mission to troll him right now? Why would it give out a useless card such as this one? What use would he have for the appearance alteration card? Lu Zhou's current appearance was much different compared to when he just recently transmigrated here. This latest card was more useless than the last. At this moment, Zhao Yu's voice rang from outside the pavilion. Master, see Wuya requests an audience. What is it? He says that he remembers something about the memory crystal. Bring him here. Yes, master. Soon after, Zhao Yu brought Si Wuya to the eastern pavilion. Si Wuya's mental state was visibly better than it was a few days ago. He opened the doors carefully and walked in while Zhao Yu waited outside. When he entered the study, he saw Lu Zhou sitting on a rush cushion with his eyes closed. He called out softly, Master. Lu Zhou slowly opened his eyes before he looked at Si Wuya and said, Sit. I dare not, Master. Speak, then, Lu Zhou said. Si Wuya nodded and said, I've been reflecting inside the cave of reflection over the past few days. I've been thinking about the memory crystals as well. I have a feeling the crystal is in Rongxi instead of Rongbei. Why would you say that? Lu Zhou asked. After you sealed your memories, Master, you went to Rongxi. There are 5 nations in Rongxi: Qigong Nation, Wuxian Nation, Sushen Nation, Chenggu Nation, and Lulan. Many other tribesmen dwelled in the 5 nations. They believe and worship evil monsters. After you returned from sealing your memories, we were attacked by the elites from the 10 great sects. For them to plan the siege, they must know about your movements in detail. In my opinion, Lu Lan is the only one with the motives and strength to pull it off. Lu Lan. Lu Zhou was puzzled. When he first transmigrated here, he had always thought the troubles were caused by the rascals, especially Zhenghai. Now that he heard Si Wuya's words, he thought it was believable. Si Wuya continued to say, second senior brother once killed a royal consort in the western regions. Do you know why, Master? Lu Zhou glanced at him with a slight frown on his face. His expression clearly said, Are you trying to be funny, you rascal? Si Wuya was so startled that he hastily said, the royal consort was a grand shaman. She had her eyes on second senior brother and wanted to control him. Second senior brother was not fooled. After killing the royal consort, the imperial family had to accept Consort Yu into the palace to establish an alliance by marriage. Consort Yu is immortal, but she brought Emoli, who had wanted to plunge Great Yen into chaos. Alas, the evil sky pavilion stood in her way. Lu Zhou nodded. What you're saying is that Lu Lan is the one that's plotting against me. Most likely so, Si Wuya replied. What does this have to do with the memory crystals? Si Wuya said, since the people of Lu Lan know about your movements so well. I'm sure they know where you've been in Rongxi. If we can retrace your steps back then, perhaps, we can find the memory crystal. Lu Zhou stroked his beard and pondered on Si Wuya's words. This rascal had a point. However, how were they supposed to go about doing this? Si Wuya seemed to have foreseen this. He said, Master, I've also planted some of my own men in the other tribes, especially in Lulan. Lu Zhou looked at Si Wuya again. He noticed that Si Wuya's loyalty was higher than before. However, it was still not very high. Master, I'm the only one who can do this. Although Zhenghai Jian is the 3rd prince and has many sources, he doesn't understand the other tribes well enough. Moreover, Zhenghai Jian is unfettered and indolent in nature. He won't pay attention to much information. In the past, I've notified the evil sky pavilion of many pieces of information under the Darknet's name. Zhenghai Jian could have done that if he only. Zhenghai Jian can be trusted. At this juncture, Si Wuya fell silent immediately. He noticed his master's intent gaze, and he shuddered inwardly. He fell to one knee and hastily said, It's not my intention to slander Zhenghai Jian. Please forgive me, Master. Lu Zhou stroked his beard and nodded. Do you know why I wanted you to reflect on your actions in the cave of reflection? I know that my act of treason can never be forgiven. I have no complaints, no matter the punishment, Wuya replied. You're wrong. It was clearly unreasonable to punish Wuya this severely just because he had defected in the past. After all, he had kneeled outside the Heaven Choice Temple for 3 days and 3 nights to save Zhu Honggong. Moreover, to save Yu Shangrong, he scoured Great Yen in search of runes. In his personal diary, it was clearly documented how he had saved Yu Zhenghai. If Lu Zhou continued to blame him after all discovering these things, it would be clear that Lu Zhou was intentionally being obtuse. Lu Zhou continued to say, "You're just like Yu Shangrong. You have much unneeded pride." Pride? You can be confident, but being overconfident makes you conceited. Pride will often cloud your eyes, Lu Zhou said. Wuya was stunned. He remembered the pile of paper inside the cave of reflection. He felt his cheeks burn. He prided himself in being intelligent and being able to come up with strategic plans. However, he could not solve a single one of those questions. In the end, he said, "You're right, master. I understand now." Lu Zhou walked to the nearest chair and sat down. He said, "Up until now. You still won't reveal what happened to you, Zhenghai?" Wuya shuddered. "I've made a promise to eldest senior brother." Lu Zhou frowned slightly when he saw Wuya's determination. Wuya claimed that he had been reflecting, and yet, he still remained stubborn. Lu Zhou's expression was stern as he said in a deep voice, "Fine. If you insist on not revealing the truth to me, you're now banished from the pavilion. From this day on, you no longer have any ties with the evil Sky Pavilion. I'll return the peacock plume to you." Lu Zhou flipped his right hand, and the peacock plume appeared above his palm. He did not hesitate as he tossed it over to Wuya. Wuya was as still as a wooden chicken. Lu Zhou looked at Wuya with his keen eyes, waiting for Wuya's answer. "You can leave whenever you want. If we meet again as enemies, don't expect me to show any mercy." Lu Zhou would never believe in Wuya's determination to keep his promises. "If you can betray your own master, wouldn't I be foolish to believe that you'll keep your promise to Yu Zhenghai?" What a joke. Wuya looked at the peacock plume with a stunned expression. His mind was completely blank at this moment. "Ding," instructed Wuya. "Reward, 500 merit points." This time, both of Wuya's knees were on the ground. He prostrated himself and said, "I'll tell you what I know, but you must promise me one thing, master." "You're trying to negotiate with me?" Wuya hastily said. "I have no intention of being disobedient, master, nor am I bold enough to negotiate with you." "Aren't you trying to negotiate now?" Lu Zhou stared at Wuya with blazing eyes. Wuya felt extremely awkward. All his confidence and composure seemed to vanish under his master's eyes. He was extremely flustered. For a time, he was at a loss for words. Lu Zhou produced Wuya's diary from his sleeve. After reading it, he placed it on the table. The room was extremely quiet now. The master and disciple, one seated, the other kneeling. After a long pause, Lu Zhou said, "Do you think there's no way I'd find out about it just because you refused to tell me?" Wuya looked up at Lu Zhou and said in shock, "You knew?" "The people of Wuqi, upon their deaths, provided that their hearts remain intact, can be resurrected if they're buried and watered." Wuya's eyes widened. He looked at his diary on the table. The records were too obvious. It was difficult to not notice them. In the end, his master had found out about it. He prostrated himself again. He said in a hoarse voice, "Eldest senior brother has had a tough life." "Him?" Lu Zhou appeared skeptical. Yu Zhenghai had founded the Nether Sect and assimilated other factions to his sect everywhere he went. His 4 great protectors were valiant warriors. Now that the fiend path was practically under his control, he traveled in his flying chariot to establish his dominance daily. He attacked cities and conquered lands. How was this a tough life?